Hey guys, happy Wednesday. How's it going? I hope you're all doing really well. So today we're still in Unit 7. We're going to do Lesson 2 today. We're going to talk about something called simplifying radicals, and then you've got a maze assignment to complete after that. Oh my gosh, have y'all seen this cat meme? This lawyer that was in Texas? If you haven't, Google that, lawyer Zoom cat. Oh my gosh, it's hilarious. You got to watch it. Okay. So in Canvas today, don't forget your attendance check-in, of course. And then here is the assignment. Excuse me. So I'm going to go over some notes first. Now your notes are here in the Unit 7 journal slides. You should have put these in the orange journal, your third quarter journal, which is the one with the orange cover. Or again, if you are just copying these down into a notebook, like a spiral or something, that's fine. If you have a printer at home, you can print them out. Either way is fine. Whatever works best for you, and then keep it in a binder or something if you're printing them out. But you will need these notes when we go to take our journal quiz in just a few weeks, actually, because we'll do that right before spring break. Okay, so simplifying radicals. Well, first of all, what is a radical? So a radical is simply, let me grab my thing here. Okay. A radical is this symbol right here. We also sometimes call it a square root symbol. So if it doesn't have a number in front of it, then that means we're taking square root. Sometimes you'll see it like this, and it might have a 3 in front of it. Or it could have a 4, 5, 6. It can have any number sitting for it. And so that would mean for this one, it would be the cube root. If it's a 4, it'd be the fourth root. But you should remember, hopefully, that square roots are what undo squares. So see this circle we have over here? We're going to take a look at this, and we're going to fill in the outside of this circle. The outside of the circle. The inside is filled in. So the inside, this is a table of your perfect squares. For instance, 1 squared is 1 times 1, which equals 1. Now, if you're working on the Google slide, I did put text boxes so you can type all of these. If you're printing it out, then just, you can write it in like I am. So 2 squared is 2 times 2, which is 4. 3 squared, 3 times 3, which is 9, so on, okay? So 4 squared is 4 times 4, which is 16. 5 squared is 25. 6 squared, 36. Then we have 49. 64. 9 times 9 is 81. 10 times 10 is 100. 11 times 11 is 121. And then 12 times 12 is 144. So these numbers are perfect squares. We can keep going. You could do 13 squared, 14 squared, 15 squared. Those are your perfect squares, which means if we take the square root of those numbers, we get a whole number. And you can go backwards here on this table. If you take the square root of 4, you'll get 2. Let me redo that. You take the square root of 4, you'll get 2. So you can actually go backwards by taking the square root, and it'll tell you what the square root of those numbers are, okay? So you can work both ways, inside the circle to the outside or outside to inside by squaring it or taking the square root. These are the numbers, they're going to be key for us here when we simplify these radicals, when we're simplifying square roots, basically. So let's look at a couple examples, and I think you'll see what I mean. So for example, simplify square root of 20, example 1. Now, pull up your calculator on your Chromebook. You're going to want to use your calculator. It's going to be really handy for this. So why are they telling us to simplify this? Why are they not just asking me what the square root of 20 equals? Well, because if we take, and notice on your calculator here, the square root symbol is above the little button with the square. So if I type in like 7 squared, it tells me that's 49. But if I want to take the square root of a number, I have to hit the blue button and then that squared button. It's because that's why they're on top of each other. That's when they're side by side, because they undo each other. Square root of 49 is 7, okay? And so that's one on our table too. Okay, so let's take the square root of 20. Oh, it's this nasty decimal. So that's why they're telling us we can simplify it, because I can't take the square root of 20. Because notice on our circle here, 20 falls somewhere in between here. It's in between 16 and 25. I could take the square root of 16 and get 4, but the next number I can take the square root of and not get a decimal is 25. So that's why these numbers on the outside of our circle are so important. These are the numbers that we can take the square root of and not get a decimal. So instead what we do is we simplify this. So we're going to start, and we still have our square root symbol. But what we try to do is we want to say, okay, well, can I rewrite 20 then? Maybe I could rewrite it as two numbers that are multiplied together. Always want to find two that we're multiplying. We want to find the factors. And I still get 20. So I could do 1 times 20. We don't really ever want to use 1, though. We could take the square root of 1. So sometimes it's a good number, but for this purpose, we don't want to use 1. We want to skip 1, and we want to go to 2. I could say 2 times 10. But then I look at those numbers and I go, okay, can I take the square root of 10 or the square root of 2? So you want to look outside your wheel over here. You want to look outside your wheel and go, whoops, I just erased my 9. And go, okay, is 2 or 10 outside my wheel? No, because 2 would be somewhere in here. It's not there. And then 10 would be in here. Look, I erased my wheel. 16. So no, 2 nor 10 is on the outside of my wheel. So I can't take the square root of either one of those. So those are not the numbers that I want to use. So I'm going to find some different numbers. Well, what if I said 4 times 5? Isn't that 20? Y'all, I cannot write my 5s. I don't know why I'm having such trouble with 5s on the iPad. I do. It's a struggle. Okay. Squirrel. Chased a squirrel there. 4 times 5. Yes, that is 20. Awesome. And you know what else I'm seeing is that 4 is a number on the outside of my wheel. Oh, that's great. Since 4 is on the outside of my wheel, I can take the square root of 4 and get a perfect number, a perfect whole number. I get 2 when I take the square root of 4, right? Okay, well, great. So let's do that. There's a rule that says you can do this. I can go ahead and just take the square root of 4, and he's going to come now outside my square root when I do that. Because the square root of 4 is 2, just the 2, not the 2 squared, right? Okay, and then I still have a square root, and what's left underneath it is 5. So he's going to have to stay there. I can't take the square root of 5, and 5 I can only write as 5 times 1, so I'm done. That's it. This is the square root of 20 simplified, and I'm going to prove it to you. So I come over here, and I say 2, and then I put my square root in, and I put the 5. See, I've typed it just like that and hit enter. Look, they're exactly the same decimals. So if you simplified it correctly, it's exactly the same answer, the same exact decimals. Okay, well, let's look at a different one that has it's a little bit different, a little bit harder because it has a bigger number. So we're trying to simplify the square root of 320. And sometimes they don't extend the square root all the way, but notice, that 320 is underneath that whole symbol there. Okay, so there's a better way for us to do this rather than just sit here and just start guessing. Okay, what can I divide 320 by? I can write 320 as, remember, I'm trying to write it as two numbers that are multiplied together. That's what I want to do. So what you can do is come over to your calculator. Remember how we were putting this in when we were doing factoring with the X in the box? And it was giving us the factors. If we do 320 divided by X, blue button, table. So all of these are what multiplies to be 320. So I'm going to look. I could do 1 times 320. But remember, I don't really want to use 1. Okay, I could do 2 times 160. I don't know that I can take the square root of 160, though. 3 times 106.67. Remember, if it's a decimal, we don't want to use it. 4 and 80, 5 and 64. I'm looking for numbers that are outside my wheel here. Outside the wheel. Well, I see 4 is outside the wheel for sure. You could use 4. You could say 4 times 80 because we just did that, right? We said 4 times 80, okay. And we said we can take the square root of 4 because it's outside our wheel and we get 2. So I would take the square root of 4 and bring it out. That's going to leave me with 2 now outside because the square root of 4 is 2. And inside I'm left with the 80. But then I look and I go, well, okay, I'd have to come back over here now and I need to say, well, maybe I could do it again with 80. Maybe I could find factors of 80 and I could take the square root with one of them. So you have to check. Well, 1 times 80, 2 times 40. Oh, I'm seeing 4 again. So I could do 4 times 20. So this is the same thing as, now I'm going to rewrite 80 as 4 times 20. Okay, I can take the square root of 4, and I'm going to bring it out, and it's going to have to sit by that other 2 that's in front. So now I have 2 times, well, the square root of 4 is 2, and I'm left with 20 inside my square root. Well, I could simplify this again, right? I could say 2 times 2 is 4 square root, but hey, can't I rewrite 20 as 2 numbers? Yes, because we just did square root of 20, and we said 20 is the same thing as 4 times 5. So I could take the square root now of 4 and bring it outside and sit it in front of this 4. Everything's being multiplied here. Well, the square root of 4 is 2. So, and I'm going to bring my, I'm actually going to take my answer over here, okay? Need more room. The square root of 4 is 2. So I would rewrite this as, I'm going to take it up here, as 2 times 4. See where I'm getting this 2 from? Because I took the square root of this 4. And then I'm left with a 5 underneath. Well, I can simplify this because 2 times 4 is 8, square root 5. So that's my final answer. Because remember, I can't simplify a square root of 5. Okay, so let's type it in. We can check to make sure it works. So I could do square root of 320. That's this crazy decimal here. And let me see if I re-simplified it correctly. 8 second square root of 5, same crazy decimal. So yes, those are equivalent. So I did simplify it correctly. Now that was a lot of steps. So I'm going to tell you, yes, there is an easier way. So I'm going to start back over here and I'm going to show you square root of 320. So let me go back to my table here. Let me type in the 320 again, divided by x, in my table. So we started off and we said 4 times 80. But now I'm looking, 5's not on the outside of my wheel, so let me bring my wheel back up out here. Remember, I'm looking for one of the values that's on the outside of my wheel. 5's not, but now what about 64? I can't use these because they have decimals. I can't use the 6, the 7, I don't use anything with a decimal. 64, is it on the outside of our wheel? Oh, yes, it is right here. So I can take the square root of 64. So if I had started off by writing, now let me come over here. If I had written 320 as square root, so now I'm breaking it apart 320, and I'm going to say 320 is the same thing as 5 times 64, because that's what my table is telling me. 5 times 64 is 320. Well, okay, then I know because 64 is on the outside of my wheel, I can go ahead and take the square root of that and bring it out. Well, the square root of 64 is what? 8. So when I take the square root of the 64, it becomes 8 outside your square root, and the only thing left inside is 5. Guys, look, we got there in one step. So I did all of that work to show you it's not wrong. If you see 4, and that's what happens a lot of times, students will see 4 on the table and they want to use 4. It's great. You can do it, but you need to type your new number under your square root back in the calculator and keep going. Because if we had stopped when we did 4 times 80 up here, we hadn't actually simplified it all the way when we got there. 2 square root 80 is not the fully simplified answer. But if you look in your calculator and you go, okay, I see 4, but let me check real quick and keep going down and see if there's a bigger number that's outside the wheel. Use the largest one. You will get there much faster, okay? And I think those were going to be our only options here for this one. Yep, looks like it to me because I don't see anything else that's outside my wheel, okay? So that's 2 different ways you can work that problem. Now, for your assignment today, you pull up the maze. Let's see if it's going to let me open it. It may be locked. I have to do this right here. Okay, there. Whoops. Hang on just a second. Let me pull this up and then I'll be back. Okay, so I'm back. I've got it opened up now. So you remember, click this little blue link. Okay, so here's your maze. And here you're going to drag these over your answer choices. Now you need to get a piece of paper and put a picture of your work here so I can give you credit for the assignment. But now notice, the first one says start here, simplify square root through 20. So if you notice, I just did this one in the notes with you. I did. We said square root of 320 simplifies to be 8 square root 5. So you would drag this and put it over this one. So now you're going to work this one next, the square root of 162. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work that one with you guys just to show you another example and kind of get you started a little bit more. So let me bring up my page here. Okay, so we're trying to simplify, let me write this down, square root of 162. Okay. So here on my iPad. Okay, so now let me come over here. So we're gonna, first you're gonna do, go to your calculator. You're gonna put the 162 divided by X, blue button, graph. Okay, so here's all of our options here. So remember, we're looking for one of these that's outside the wheel. So you're gonna have to keep going back and forth between, you're gonna need to look at your notes because that wheel is gonna help you so much. So 1, we don't want to use 1. Remember that. We could use 2 and 81. Is 81 outside your wheel? 354, 627. The only one I'm seeing that's outside the wheel is the 81. So that's the one we want to use. So we would rewrite 162 as 2 times 81. Remember, that's what the calculator is telling you. Then, because we can take the square root of 81, that one's outside of our wheel, it's a perfect square. We go ahead and take the square root of it and bring it outside. Well, the square root of 81 is 9. So I still have my square root, and what's left underneath it? 2. That's our answer for that one. So let's see. Yep, 9 square root 2. And if you want to check it, you can always come back to your calculator. You can hit second quit, and you could type it in. Square root 162. What do you get? This decimal. Well, let's make sure that 9 square root 2 is the same decimal. It is. Those are equivalent. So it is simplified. Okay? So that's an easy way for you to check your answers. So I want to see your work, just like I wrote my work. That's what I want to see when you do your work. Email me if you have any questions or if you get stuck. You will stop when you get to one, like, I don't know, you get to one somewhere and you don't see any answers around it, like the answer you're getting is not there. That's when you stop.